So what we're going to look at here in this video is talking about how to evaluate expressions. So the main things that we're going to focus on is using the order of operations and then rewriting algebraic expressions that include multiplication and division or addition and subtraction. And so we're going to start by looking at this warm-up. So go ahead and pause the video now to try the warm-up on your own. So looking at this warm-up, it says Melinda asked Taiwan, what's 4 plus 6 times 3? What did she mean and why? And so I would say all of these answers could possibly be correct based on the way, based on what Melinda wanted to say and how she said it. So if Melinda said, what's 4 plus 6 times 3? Notice I put a pause in there, that 4 plus 6 times 3. That's sort of me grouping the 4 plus 6 together. So with that pause in the way I said it, this first answer could be correct. If I said it, what's 4 plus 6 times 3? You'll see that I put a pause before the plus 6 times 3. So I'm kind of grouping that multiplication there. And that grouping of the multiplication would look like number 2. And then if I said, what's 4 plus 6 times 3? I don't really group anything there. So because I didn't group anything when I said it that way, 4 plus 6 times 3, there's no pauses, then what you would notice is that this third one could be correct. So in all instances, it all kind of comes down to what exactly was Melinda asking and how did she say it. So when we look at that, then we are coming to this next question: how would you write 10 minus 3 then times 4 as a mathematical expression? And because they added the word then in there, it kind of puts an order into how you should do things. So in this case, 10 minus 3 comes first, so we would want to write that in parentheses. Then we'd want to multiply that by 4. So what we look at here and what we're finding out that is when we are talking about and reading these expressions, we need to be careful on how we read them and kind of group them in the way that we speak because of the order of operations. Now, you guys have learned a lot about order of operations. A lot of times you'll hear the phrase PEMDAS, which means that you go through and you deal with all the parentheses, then the exponents, then you combine, then you do multiplication and division left to right, and then addition and subtraction left to right. So that means with this example up here, 4 plus 6 times 3, we would have 10 times 3, which would be 30. And then here with the parentheses there, we'd have 4 plus 18, which would be 22. And then actually this one here is the same thing, 4 plus 18, and that would equal 22. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how can we come up with equations based off of the order of operations that we are given in a sentence. So first off, we're going to look at part A of this example. It says multiply 6 times a starting number, then add 15, divide this result by 3, and then subtract your answer from 80. So it first asks, what is the result when you start with 5? So first we would take 6 times our starting number, which is 5. So that would be 30. Then we would add 15 to that. And then we would divide this by 3. And then subtract your answer from 80. And the correct way to write this is you would need to take this number, whatever this expression is equal to, and you would need to subtract that from 80. You do not want to put minus 80. It's 80 minus this expression. So when we solve this, we would have 80 minus 30 plus 15. That quantity is divided by 3. And then 80 minus 30 plus 15 is 45. Divide that by 3 equals 80 minus 15, which is equal to 65. Okay, so we evaluated this expression and got 65. Now, for 14, you would do the same thing. except your starting number is changing. So our starting number in part A was 5. So that starting number is going to change. So for 14, you would have 80 minus 6 times 14 plus 15 divided by 3. Oops. Divide that quantity by 3, and you would evaluate that. And then you have 80 minus 6 times negative 3 plus 15. Divide that by 3, and you would have to evaluate that expression with negative 3 as your starting number. Okay. Now, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to come up with a mathematical expression that fits this statement that we just worked with, that fits this statement. And we want to use x to represent the starting number. Okay? So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take what we have written up here, and instead of writing it with a number, with all numbers, we're going to replace our starting number with the letter x. So our starting number was 5, 14, and negative 3. So we're going to replace that with x. So we would have, for a mathematical expression, 80 minus 6 times x plus 15 divided by 3. And so this mathematical expression represents this sentence that we've been dealing with, this statement, this mathematical statement up here. And so that's how we would represent that. And then you can always check your answer in part, you can always check your answers from part A on your calculator. Now, another example of a type of problem that you want to be doing or know how to do is if I give you an expression like this, can you write out step by step what you would do? So in this case, we want to write a statement that fits this mathematical expression. So the first thing that we would be doing is we'll just write out the steps. So you would want to add 7 to x. Then divide by 4, and then add 5. Okay, so what you'll notice is we had to write out everything that we were going to do first inside the parentheses. After that, we would multiply what's in the parentheses by 4. So multiply by 4, and then we have to subtract x and add 13. So, and then subtract x, and finally add 13. Okay, and so that's how you would write that that expression out as a mathematical statement. So going from here, we've been using the word expression. I want you to understand that an algebraic expression, it's an expression that can involve both numbers and variables. And the important thing to make sure you take note about an algebraic expression is that there are no equal signs. Okay, no equal signs. Algebraic expression is typically going to be where you're simplifying. You're finding out what number you get after plugging a number in for a variable. So that's going to come up, that difference where there's no equal signs, that's going to come into play in lesson 2.8 when we start talking about equations. So the last example we want to look at, it says Al and Cal both evaluated the expression 7 minus 4 plus 2. Al said the answer is 1 because you can add in any order. So I did 4 plus 2 first. Cal said the answer is 5 because you have to go left to right. Who is right and why? So the initial response is that Cal is correct. Okay, the answer is 5. And the reason being is if you add from left to right, you get 7 minus 4 plus 2. So 7 minus 4 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Now, I want to talk about what Al said, because technically what Al said is not, technically Al's thought process was not correct. or was not incorrect. We are able to do addition and subtraction in any order. However, when Al did his subtraction or his addition, he added 4 plus 2 and got 6. However, what Al did not remember is that when you are subtracting a number, that's really the same as 7 plus negative 4 plus 2. So when he does his addition from on the right first, if he chooses to do addition first, it's not 4 plus 2, it's negative 4 plus 2. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. So we have 7 plus negative 2. And again, when you are adding a negative number, that is the same as subtracting. So 7 minus 2 is 5. So that is the mistake that Al made in this problem. And so what I want you to remember is that you need to make sure you pay attention to the minus signs when you're subtracting something that is the same thing as addition, which is why you're able to do addition and subtraction left to right or in any order that you want, because they are technically the same thing. Finally, there is something to say about dividing and multiplying. If you take the number 9 and divide it by 3, that is the same thing as saying take the number 9 and multiply it by 1/3. So you're able to sort of switch between multiplying and dividing in that same sense, because technically you're doing the same thing. So to summarize this lesson, how would you describe what an algebraic expression is? An algebraic expression is an expression with numbers and variables. The important thing is no equal sign. Okay? And finally, a variable is a letter that represents an unknown value. Okay? So again, in this lesson, what you should be able to do after watching this video and after going through this lesson is you should be able to evaluate an expression using order of operations. You should be able to take a statement and write an equation, write an expression using a variable that represents that statement. And you should be able to look at an expression and understand what steps are being done and when they're being done. So now you're going to go work on your homework right there, and email me or message me on Remind if you have any questions.